Hello everybody and welcome back to Creating Hanley. I am Kimberly at Creating Hanley with our September star block of the month. And I am finishing drawing this Ohio star block. So our star block for September is the Ohio star block. And I was drawing this and I'm thinking, I should tell you guys what I'm doing here. So what I did, and you can I don't know how you plan out your star blocks or any of your blocks when you sew quilts, but I kind of just do it on this just regular. This just happens to be generic, and this isn't even a big page. This is just like the little pages. Anyway, I just kind of scribble some notes down on paper is what I do. So what I did was I just kind of made a square. I don't even measure anything, and this is not graph paper, so I just drew a square, and then I drew sections. I drew 2 lines down, and that separates the square in thirds up and down and thirds horizontally, right? So now that makes 9 blocks. So basically we're making a 9 patch here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so I started drawing how the star block is laid out. And for this block, so basically all I'm doing, let me bring this down, is I'm making an X. That's all I did with these, is I drew an X, and then I colored in the areas where I want to use a specific type of fabric. So I know for these triangles, I want to use a specific type of fabric, and I want these all to be the same. Now your design can be however you want it to be. You can leave it like this. You can have this part colored in the same color as these. So you can use a two-tone color if you want this part to be colored the same as these. So this and this can match. And then these and these squares can match. So you can use 2 colors if you want to do that. That is great. You can do that. You can use 3 colors if you want to. You can have these little triangles be a different color. So I'm going to throw in maybe circles here to indicate this is going to be a different type of fabric, or different color fabric. Okay? So you could do that. So now your pattern changes a little bit. Now the star looks a little bit different. You could have this as a 3rd or a 4th color. If you did not want this to match, you can make this square, center square, a 4th color. So now we have 4 different colors of fabric. One, a white background, or so it doesn't have to be white. It can be a light background, or you can flip the contrasting colors. You can have this a dark background. So instead of coloring in these triangles here, you could color in, the background if you wanted to do that. So you can reverse it. So I'm using white. I actually am using white. So I'm going to leave these all white. So I did not color those in. This is going to be a different color. This is going to be a different color. And this is going to be a different color. So because it's called the Ohio Star, I did a little research on the Ohio state flag, and it happens to be red, white, and blue. That's kind of funny to me. But when you look up the history of the Ohio flag, there's a reason why it's red, white, and blue. So I'm not going to go into that history right now, but suffice it to say, the Ohio flag is red, white, and blue. So in that vein, in that theme, because you guys know I like theme, I found red, white, and blue fabric in my stash. Now the blue, I believe it's called the Ohio Burgee. Is it the Ohio Burgee flag? Has a name. It's the Ohio Burgee. Now Ohio is the Buckeye state. And so what they did in their color coordinating or their color assignment for the flag. They have a blue called Buckeye Blue. That's their official color, Buckeye Blue. They have Cardinal Red, and they have white. So they listed Buckeye Blue, Cardinal Red, and just plain white. So in that theme, I just chose this red, just a plain white, and the blue, I found a blue in my stash with little polka dots. So I'm going to use that for the center. This is my background. And then this is going to be those triangles that surround the center. So this is an old piece of fabric I have that I absolutely love, my patriotic bucket. I have a patriotic box that I keep all my patriotic fabric in. So anyway, I digress. If you get the chance, go research the Ohio state flag and you'll see what I mean. And then also there is some history on the Ohio state or the Ohio star block that I didn't do a whole lot of research on, but I found quite interesting. It started in the 1800s and, it was used quite a bit. This star block was used quite a bit during the Civil War in the United States because the pieces were tiny and the seamstresses or the quilters could just grab fabric from anywhere that they could and patch them together. And it's a relatively simple pattern. Like I said, it's a 9-patch and you can make these whatever you wanted to. So that's what these, and I guess it's mostly women that did that back in during the Civil War era. But, and I could be wrong about that. Whoever's doing the research, leave me a comment about that. Yeah, so go ahead and do some extra research. But yeah, so you can see these are like tiny or smaller pieces that they could patch together to create a 9-patch. And then that becomes the block. And you do this over and over and over and over again, and you have a whole quilt or whatever it is you're trying to bake. But they probably made blankets or quilts, right? So let me show you the fabric that I already showed you the fabric that I chose, but let me show you the sizes. So these are going to be these patches, and I already cut them because you don't need to see me cutting fabric. It's boring. In fact, this is probably boring. But anyway, I made 4. Now, these are 4.5-inch squares. So these are the background that I'm using. So these 4.5-inch squares are these blocks right here. Okay? Those are the corner blocks. 4 4.5-inch squares. All right? So we write that down. 4 4.5-inch squares. And then for my center block, I chose this fabric. I mean, it's polka dots. It's not really stars, but it's okay because I'm not using Buckeye Blue, so it's all right. It'll get the point across. So this is also 4.5-inch. So for my center block, I'm using a 4.5-inch. So we got that, right? 4 4.5-inch for the corners. And 1 4.5-inch for the center. Okay, put that aside. Now, to make these are actually hourglasses. And this is actually the whole entire quilt block right here. Just making these. And once you make these little units, you're going to be able to put this together really quickly. So, because you only need 4 of those. So I only have 4, but I have 3 different colors of fabric. So for the color here that I drew in dark, I'm using red. So for those, use 2 or cut 2 6-inch squares. So cut 2 6-inch squares for these triangles. Now, because I'm using 3 colors in this hourglass, the white is out here, so I just have 1 6-inch white, 1 6-inch white. And then because I wanted to make it a little bit different, I'm using this star print for this right here. So this is another 6-inch square. So we basically have 4 6-inch squares and 5 4.5-inch squares. 4 6-inch squares and 5 4.5-inch squares for these. Okay? Write that down on your notes. You only need 4 6-inch squares and 5 4.5-inch squares. Okay? Now you can verify, or not verify, you can signify whatever color you want. So you can have A, B, C, and D. Okay? A, B, C, and D. If you wanted to use 4, you could use 5 colors if you wanted. You could make this. You can make this little thing separate. You can make this little triangle up in here even a different color if you wanted to. Now remember, you really only need 2 colors. You could make it fancy and use 3. And I'm using 4. Okay, so there's that. All right. Now, you're going to keep this so that you can place it in a position where you can refer to it as needed. But basically, we just want to set the 4.5-inch. Once you cut these, set all your 4.5-inch blocks, your squares, to the side. We don't need those right now. What we need are these cool things. Okay. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just using white thread in my machine, by the way. So you just want to put 2 right sides together. Now, these solids don't really have a right side. So whatever right side works for you, use that. So let me take you down to the cutting or the sewing surface right here. So I am making sure that the top and the bottom are lined up perfectly. And the same with this one. Right sides together. And there's a couple different ways that you can, so we're going to mark the line down the center here. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. One way is by drawing, and you can use whatever drawing utensil that you want. I'm just using a number 2 pencil. You can use the invisible, the fading ink. You can use a pen if you want to. You can do it that way. So now I have, this is my this is my cut line. So I'm going to mark, and you don't even have to do this either, but this is my cut line. So I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on either side of that. So once I've drawn that line, I'm going to draw a sew line, and you could do the same thing on the other side. Now, do you have to do this? Absolutely not. You can always use a mark on your machine, on your base. You can use the tape. You can use the tools that are out there that marks a 1/4 inch, so you don't have to do all this. Especially if you're making an entire quilt, drawing these lines might take a really long time. So, because I just said that, drawing those lines might take a long time, I'm going to bring you over to the ironing surface. So what you can do is take your square here, fold it in half, and iron on a line. So now I've just created a crease where I can follow on my machine. Now I'm going to move this out of the way so I don't burn my arm. But I'm going to sew, just from this line, I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on one side and the other. So I just have white in here. Actually, I just want to measure this for a second. Is this going to be right? Okay. So one thing you can do is you take your little measuring gauge, and I am not sponsored by this. This is just a tool that I have, and this is a really cool, awesome little tool. If you have the chance to use it, I was gifted this, and it is fantastic. I love this little thing. I use it quite often. Now I want to find my 1/4 inch mark, so I'm going to find this mark right here, and I'm going to find where that needle is and where the line is. So this is another way to use your tools. And so now I know where to line up my crease on my, if you can see that, I'm lining up my crease right on this line in here so that I know that's a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And we are good to go there. Okay, set my thread. Just sew a straight line down. I don't even have to cut my thread. I can just spin it around. Cut the other side, or not cut, sew the other side. Uh-oh, I'm a little bit off on here. And now I'm going to bring the other one over and chain piece this one. And again, not cutting my thread, just spinning it around. And that one got a little bit caught in the feed dogs, and that is why you use a leader. Okay, this is wonky. I just cut it super wonky, guys, and that is par for the course for me. I'm always cutting it wonky. So I want to show you. See how that got all bunched up right here? It got caught in the feed dogs. And when it gets caught in the feed dogs, that throws your fabric off a little bit, and it throws your stitch off. So you don't want that to happen. That's why you use a leader. You put that in place first, and then that automatically creates enough of a lead where this does not get caught in the feed dogs. And then this one, I did not sew very straight. Let me show you on the red side, because that is easy contrast. You can see that line is not straight. It got a little bit narrow in here. So already I started off wonky. So par for the course for Kimberly. Now you can see on these lines that I drew, I stayed pretty true. Let's see. You can see that I stayed pretty true to those lines where I drew, and then on this side too. Pretty true to that, right? But I didn't have any lines over here. I just had a crease, and you can see where this kind of came in. Wait, where am I? This side came in a little bit. See how narrow that is? Whoops. That's kind of narrow right there. So that's going to screw up my outcome. So I think I want to re-sew it. How bad is that off? Well, the one side is perfect. Yeah, the one side is perfect. The other side that came in a little bit narrow, that's not perfect. And that will probably throw off my... the whole thing is a little bit wonky. So if I drew, now you can see where I drew the line. Can you see how much off that is? It's a very faint line, but you can see how off that is. So I'm going to re-sew the line. I don't need to pull any stitches out, because I'm going to sew a line that's bigger. I'm going to sew a bigger seam allowance. There we go. Hopefully that's better. Okay, that's a little bit better now. All right, we're going to take that. Now I'm going to take you over to the cutting surface. And I'm using this mat right here. My little twirly mat. Use a straight edge. And you can use scissors if you want. Cut it straight down the center. Okay. And then once you do that, you can open it up. And there's your new square. All right. Now, for this one, I'm going to use my rotating cutter. And, well, you can barely see that. But yeah, this is what I'm doing. Straight down the center. And when you open that up, there you go. Now, take it over to the ironing surface. And I'm just ironing to the dark side. And I'm going to grab the seam because this little thing is kind of being wonky here. So I'm just going to force it down with water. Now water does relax the fibers. And there we go. Now remember, guys, if you are using red fabric, see, oh, I don't know if you can see that, but the red gets darker under the iron. Maybe you can see that. Maybe you can't. But red changes color. It gets a little darker. But don't worry. It comes back to its original color. And I'm not really sure why that happens, but it does. If somebody out there in quilting land knows why the red fabric turns a different color, there we go. So do that for all 4 of your squares. So now we have just created a half square triangle. That's what this is. This is a half square triangle. So we've just created 4 half square triangles. Oops. Okay. Sorry about my arm reach. So 4 half square triangles. Now, what you want to do is make them opposite. So grab one. So because I'm using four colors and I'm going to make my hourglass a little bit different, you want to grab the 2 different ones. And then, so make sure these are paired and the other ones are paired. And then you take right sides together again and then put them on alternating sides, right? Like that. So if you peel that back, that's what it's going to look like. So, for example, let's use mine. I have the red square with the white, and I have the red with the stars. So I'm going to take the red on the opposite side of the red. Okay? Now, they are going to nest because my seams are going in opposite directions. See how the seam goes this way? And on this side, the seam goes this way because I ironed to the red. I ironed to the dark side. So now that means that these will nest perfectly. And when you sew them together again, because now we're going to sew on this diagonal, and then when you cut them, do you see how that creates that hourglass shape? And this is going to be on the outside, and this is going to be on the inside, next to the inside square. It comes together that quickly, guys. All right, so let's take this over to... No, let's keep it right here. Make sure these are nested perfectly. Because if they're not nested perfectly, you're going to have a wonky seam. And you know what? I may actually have a wonky seam anyway. You're going to be able to feel that if they're nested. Okay. Yeah. These are way wonky already, guys. Okay, do a better job than I am. There, that's better. Okay, that's better. Now, we already know it goes this way, so we want to do the exact same thing, just the opposite. So nest. And you should be able to feel where it nests, and I don't know why I'm running into trouble. And then so make sure that when you take your, your straight edge, you go from corner to corner. On the opposite side. And it's the exact same process. So I am definitely going to mark each side so I don't run into the same problem. Okay. My squares are going to be wonky already. There's that one. Quarter inch on both sides. And I know this is boring for you guys, but if you're sewing along with me, like we do in our quilt-alongs, quilt as you go, then you are doing the exact same process I am right now. So we're all on the same page. All right, I'm going to push the iron out of the way and bring you over to the machine. And again, we're stitching a 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. Now, if you're sewing and you find that the bottom seam flips up, make sure you stop, flip it back the correct way, and then continue going. Don't sew with that seam flipped up the wrong way. Okay? Chain piecing here. And again, same thing. If that seam flips up, flip it back the other way. And then spin these around. All right, now take it to your cutting surface. And wow, I don't even need to do that. I can do this. You could do one long thing if you want, one long cut train right there, one long cutting train. Can you see that? Line up the lines absolutely perfectly. And there you go. Here's the reveal. Ta-da! And let's see if I matched my corners. Nope, they did not match perfectly. Do you see that little gap right there? That is not a perfect match. Probably not on any of them. Nope, not on any of them. Not a perfect match. But I told you that going in, it wouldn't be because it was already wonky. So if you didn't make your first squares wonky and you nested these perfectly, that's why nesting those perfectly was so important, because when they're perfectly nested, you're not going to get this gap here. So there you go. I am going to open the seams here because that's going to be a lot of bulk. So I'm just going to open these seams and iron them open. Whoa. Okay. Just like so. Iron the seams open. Now, if you're using a light fabric like I am, I'm using that white, you can see there's always going to be a shadow right here. There's always going to be that shadow. But that's how that goes. Now, you want to square this up to a 4.5 inch square. Okay, so I'm going to open all of these seams. Okay, and then so once you get this all done, now you can start creating your block. So you want to trim these up to a 4.5 inch block because that is what your middle block is and that is what your corner blocks are. 4.5 inches. So they all need to be the same in order to put your block, your whole entire block together. So square up these units. Oh, this didn't work out so well. All right, square up these units to 4.5 inches. And then we can start piecing our block together, and it's going to come together so quickly at this point. Okay. All right, what was that? Okay. So all 4 of these, take it over to your cutting surface. And this is why this little twirly mat comes in handy, because we can square this up. I am going to use my Omni Grid with a 1/2 inch there. Again, I'm not sponsored by anybody. This is all me. So I'm going to use my 45-degree angle line here and put that on this line. And then I want to measure it to 4.5 inches. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So I know I have plenty of fabric that I can trim off, because it actually measures at 4 and, let's see, 4.5. It actually measures at, what would this be, 5 inches? This block comes out to be 5 inches. So that gives me plenty of wiggle room to get a 4.5 inch square. Okay. So measure up 2 sides. So I don't know if you can see, but I'm using this 45-degree angle right here on that one line. So I'm using a 45. So which line would I use? I wouldn't use this broken line right here. So you can see how there's this little gap right there. I'm not going to use this line because that is broken. That's a broken line and it doesn't match up. What I am using is this line right here. This is a solid line. So I'm aligning my 45-degree line on that and then trimming to make it 4.5 inches. Okay, so let me use this one here for you. So let me put this down so you can see it a little bit easier maybe. Let me get this out of the way. Yeah. Beep. Here's my So a Year Full of Stars. So a Year Full of Stars. Okay, so you're using the 45-degree angle, and then take the edge right enough so you can just trim off a little bit, right? So now you have 1, 2, 3, 4.5 is right here. So you still have all this fabric to trim, and then here's 1, 2, 3, 4.5 is right here. So you still have all this fabric to trim. So you have plenty of fabric to trim and square up. Okay, so that's what we're doing. Just taking this over here. And because I have a little trolley mat, I don't have to pick up my ruler. I can keep it on the surface. And hopefully it doesn't move. So be very careful about it moving. You can't even see that. There we go. Let's bring this closer. Here we go. Okay. I haven't done a video in a while, guys. And it shows. All right. So 4.5 inches. So with this 1/2 inch mark out here, I have this extra 1/2 inch mark. I only need to go up to 4 inches. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I see this is the 2-inch line here. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's a 2-inch line here. So the corner where we just trimmed, this corner, is going to line up on this corner right here. And that 45-degree line is going to follow that 45-degree line. Oh, you can't even see that. There we go. Like that. Okay. And now I measure this up on a flat surface so nothing gets distorted. You want to keep it all even. And that mark and that mark, they are all lined up perfectly square on target. And my 45-degree line is where it should be. And so now I'm going to trim all the excess off. And that was quite a bit of excess coming off. So you know where this is going to go? In the pillowcase. Okay. Now, that's a 4.5 inch square block. You can definitely see that this is off. Okay. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to measure with my 4.5 inch block just to see if this is exactly on target. And it is. It is directly on target. We have achieved another 4.5 inch block. So this is called an hourglass. This is an hourglass quilt block right here. And this unit is going to create, that's the only thing that is really spectacular, is just that in this quilt block, this Ohio Star block. Okay, so line up my 45-degree angle on the one line that is solid, that is broken. The one line that is unbroken, and then you don't have to do that. I just picked that up. And that the whole purpose of having the trolley mat is so you don't pick it up. So we do this, line it up. Here we go. Trim it all off. Make sure it's good before I cut. Remember, measure twice, cut once, measure 3 times, cut once. There we go. There's another block. This video is a little bit longer than I had anticipated. Sorry about that. I'm kind of talking a lot. I guess I don't really need to talk this much, but I am. All right, there's that. And there's this. And again, you don't have to twirl that around because you're using the tools. But, however, I seem to not use the tools. Okay. 2. Oh, this is going to be extra wonky. And 1 more to go. All right, now we can put it together. And if you need to, check your picture, check your reference, so that we know the stars go towards the blue center, and these go to the outside, and the white goes to the outside. If that even made any sense at all. Okay, let's just put it together. So we know this goes here, and that goes here. So that was super easy. Dink on the outside, corner, corner. Look at that, guys, and that's your block right there. That's it. That's your block. Okay. Look at that. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, this is already 40 minutes. So I want you to sew these together, sew these together, sew these together. Now you have 3 rows. Sew the rows together. And now you have your block. Okay? I'm not going to do that. You can go ahead and do that. All you want to do is take your corner, flip it right sides together, sew there. Okay, so down there. Now you open that up, take this side, flip it right side together, sew down there, and now you have this row. And then once you have that, flip the right sides together and sew along there. Okay, and then do that for all of them, all of the blocks. And there's our Ohio star. Now I may do another video. I might do a second video. This one was really long. 40 minutes is a long time to do this simple block. But we had to create the hourglass, and I showed you how to draw. I showed you how to draw your template. And you only need 4 6-inch squares and 5 4.5-inch squares. Make your hourglass and then put them in this pattern, and you have your star. Now, you could even get creative. You could do something like this if you wanted to. Now, the thing with that is it kind of looks a little bit weird, but it looks kind of cool too at the same time. Right? Especially if the next block over, like in your quilt, if the next block over, so say like this block is in, but on your next block, say like you have this going on, and then that creates your next block, and there's a diamond in the center there. How cool is that looking, right? And then this is the next block over here, but you've created a diamond. So you can flip those around if you like. And that's how you can get super creative with the Ohio Star block. All right? Guys, thanks for hanging in there with me. This was a long video, but I'll see you on the next one. Have fun with this September Ohio Star block of the month. And let's get this quilted also. Maybe I'll do another video showing me quilting the top here, but I think by now you just know that just make your own pattern. Make your quilt sandwich. And this should come out to 12.5 inch, which we have been doing. If it's a little short, add your border around. All right, guys. I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.